and welcome to this episode of Flourish TV, where we literally exist to see you flourish, to see women empowered, encouraged, so that you can be and do all that God has called you to be. We also exist to build the local church. This is what we were born for. This is our time. This is our moment. And today we have a beautiful, phenomenal, beautiful inside and out guest with you today. And we're going to talk about what it takes, right, to rise up and become Miss Pennsylvania 2020. We are so excited to have Victoria Piekut with us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I know. Okay, one of my favorite definitions of the word flourish is this, and you're gonna love this: to adorn with beautiful flowers or figures, either natural or artificial, to ornament with anything showy.
I love that.
You have been ornamented
Aww.
with a crown, right,
Yes.
of Miss Pennsylvania. Another
Yes.
definition is beauty, showy, splendor. And
Oh,
I
wow.
just think that's such a great description
I do
of
too.
how God wants us to live our lives.
Absolutely. And I have really kept my faith strong this year especially, and it's been something that I've really leaned on throughout my whole entire journey. So I'm really excited to talk with you about that.
I know. So tell us about your journey. I know that you're a Norwin graduate,
Yes.
and you know, all of a sudden, I think you won Miss a junior pageant.
Yes, I did.
And now you go into the big leagues of the Miss USA pageant.
It's so surreal.
Tell us about that journey.
So I started in pageantry in 2012. I was 16 years old, and in pageant world, that's really a late bloomer. There are girls that start as young as 4 or 5 years old. But
Wow.
I started it as a way to actually gain more stage experience in singing opera, because I am a classically trained opera singer, and that was actually what I planned to pursue in college. And I needed some more experience on my performance resume to apply for universities. And the pageant that I started in was National American Miss, and they had a talent competition. And so I said to my mom, how amazing would this be if I won or even placed in the statewide talent competition? I could put that on my resume and it would be awesome. And so after a few years, she finally agreed. And growing up, I actually was impacted by a few different invisible illnesses that we can talk about a little bit later. And I didn't really have the opportunity to be involved in extracurricular activities or sports. Physically, I couldn't do it. And pageantry was the only way that I felt normal. And it was something that I could really let loose in and I could physically handle for a weekend. And so I was really passionate about it. And the first pageant I went to, there were 113 girls. I just went for fun and to gain more stage experience, and I ended up placing first runner-up to the overall title. And after that, really like a fire was just lit inside of me, and I became so passionate about it. And I continued in my pageant journey. Like you said, in my teen years, I was 18 years old, I think, I won an international pageant competition called International Junior Miss, where I got to travel the world for a year and represent really the entire world. I got to go to London and Paris, and the best part was that I got to do it with my mom too. And so we have all those really fond memories of that year. But then in 2018, I decided that I wanted to go for the big leagues, wanted to go for Miss USA, give it my best shot. So in 2018, I competed for the 2019 title, and I placed second runner-up. So I said, all right, I'm giving myself one more shot. We're gonna go big or go home. And I went back last year and ended up winning. So I'm headed to Miss USA. The final competition is November 9th this year.
We are so excited about that you're representing our state. You're literally representing us and the beauty of our state. And, you know, I think that's so amazing. What was it like when they put the crown on your head? That moment, like, take me there.
There's a picture where I'm holding hands with the girl that ended up placing first runner-up, and I remember being in that moment. And the funny thing is, the whole entire weekend, I was so nervous because I wanted it so badly. And I couldn't eat, like I was just so nervous. And it was 2-3 days long. And during the final competition, I stood backstage and I prayed, and I was like, God, I need your presence, I need your peace, please come over me. I need to just calm down and get through this finale. And immediately there was just this unexplainable peace that washed over me. Yes. My nerves went away completely. Wow. And I was perfectly at peace and at ease for the rest of the finale. And I knew that God had a plan, and I was just about to accept it and follow it through. And so there was, when I was holding hands with the girl that got first runner-up, I remember, this is like the last memory I have. I'm standing there and I'm looking down and I have my eyes closed and I just feel at peace. And I remember in the video you can see me just smile a little bit because I knew that like this was about to be my time, hopefully. And if it wasn't, I was still going to be at peace. And they called her as the first runner-up and my mouth just dropped. There's a picture, it's the best photo that has come out of my pageant career. Yeah. My mouth is just on the floor, my eyes wide, my head whipped to like my family in the audience. And I pretty much blacked out. I don't remember anything after that. But just looking through the photos and the videos, I just kept saying, oh my God, because I couldn't believe that it was actually happening to me. This was something that I didn't physically think would ever be possible for me. Yeah. And so that it was actually coming true was just beyond my wildest dreams.
Well, let's talk about that, because so many times people just, they look on the outside and they judge us from the outside. They're saying, well, she looks perfect. She's beautiful. Certainly, she has no struggles. She has dealt with nothing, but you actually have.
Very much so. Growing up, in 2010, I was actually diagnosed with something called postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. And what that is an invisible illness. So invisible illnesses basically mean that somebody is suffering, but you can't tell from the outside. They look completely normal. They don't have a wheelchair or a walker or something like that to really show that they are suffering. And what POTS really is a like cardiovascular blood circulation condition where the blood would pool to my feet when I would sit or stand for long periods of time. My heart would race. It was basically like I was constantly running a mile because my heart and my body were just working so hard and so fast to pump everything properly. I would get dizzy, lightheaded, heart palpitations, dehydration was my biggest problem, and I would actually have a home health care nurse come to my house every 2 weeks to administer IV fluids so that I could continue to function. And so I was diagnosed with that in 2010, but didn't really get my primary diagnosis till 2015, which was Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. And that's EDS for short. It's a connective tissue disorder that causes the POTS to happen in my body.
What?
So basically when I was born, my body doesn't produce enough connective tissue. So everything's a lot looser than it should be. My blood vessels, ligaments, skin, joints, I'm hypermobile. My joints pop in and out of place all the time. And so that turned into POTS in my body. And it was a very long road to even get that diagnosis, and getting the primary diagnosis 5, 6 years after the secondary, finally everything really clicked. But I didn't have a normal childhood by any stretch, especially when I was trying to figure out what was wrong with me, because my symptoms varied every single day. That was the really hard part in school, that my teachers and the administrators and kids my age didn't understand that one day I may be able to do something and the next day I might be flat on my back in bed.
Wow.
It just varied so drastically. And that's why I couldn't do any extracurricular activities, and I turned to pageantry because that was the one thing that I could really push myself for a weekend. And I would schedule IV fluids for when I would come back because I knew that I would need it to function. It would take so much out of me, but in my mind it was worth it because of the opportunities that I got through pageantry, the confidence that I got, and it really helped me to feel normal.
I think that's amazing that, you know, you were really playing with pain.
Yes.
And nobody knew it.
Right.
But isn't that, like, aren't we all at some point
Absolutely.
playing with pain, and there's something silent going on, and there's something that is out of order, that's not quite right.
Absolutely.
And we still have to do life.
Right.
But not only did you just do life, but you did it abundantly. You went over the top. And I just think it's inspirational for those that are silently struggling with stuff to mentally, spiritually, physically, in every way say, you know what, I'm an overcomer, I'm a victor.
Right.
And I'm going to rise above this, and I'm going to go for the gusto all the way to Miss USA.
Well, and that's something that I always said growing up, is that it would be really easy for me to just sit on the couch, accept my disabilities, accept the issues that I was having, and give up. but I never gave up hope. I was not a quitter. I'm a fighter.
Yeah.
And so I always had that passion, that drive. I wanted to have a life. And I knew that at the moment that I lost hope, I would lose everything. So I always kept that. I leaned on my faith heavily and really came out the other side.
My top 5 favorite things. There are scriptures that talk about crowns and you receiving a crown. Now, I can't take credit for this one because I read this in a devotional by Rick Renner in his Sparkling Gems from the Greek. But it's so good, I have to share it with you. Ready? My top 5 favorite crowns in the Bible. Are you ready? Number 1, there is in 1 Corinthians 9:25, there is a crown of incorruption. What? Listen, Paul describes this as a spiritual crown given to believers who practice physical self-governance and therefore ran a successful race. Isn't that amazing? So you can get, number 1, a crown of incorruption. Number 2 crown, in 1 Thessalonians 2:19, the crown of rejoicing. Are you kidding? The crown of rejoicing. Theologians often refer to this as the soul winner's crown. Isn't that good? As it is a crown given to those who have brought others to Jesus. Are you bringing others to Jesus? Then there is a crown of rejoicing waiting for you. Number 3 crown in 2 Timothy 4:8 refers to the crown of righteousness. Like, how many crowns do you want to have? Let's get them all as believers. This crown is specifically and specially designated for those who longed for Jesus' appearing and lived holy lives in anticipation for his return. How many want to receive the crown of righteousness? And number 4, this one's emotional for me because this one is from 1 Peter 5:4. And this refers to the crown of glory. And this crown of glory is called the pastor's crown. Thank God, because it is a special reward that will be given to shepherds who have faithfully pastored and taught God's people. And number 5, crown. Can you believe it? There are 5 crowns in the Bible. James 1:12. And in Revelations 2:10 is the crown of life. How many want the crown of life? This crown is often referred to as the martyr's crown because it is given to those who have suffered for their faith and those who have died for Christ. I don't know about you, but I am all in for the crowns that Jesus will hand to us on that beautiful and glorious day. So will you have a crowned, glorious life? So, was there any particular Bible character, talking about leaning into your faith, was there any woman in the Bible that just kind of spoke to you or inspired you?
Absolutely, definitely Queen Esther. And I have the Bible quote that really I stuck with, and it was Esther 4:14, and it says, "Perhaps you were born for such a time as this." And I feel like that really connects with a lot of different areas of my life. And also it's showing the journey that you may not understand what is happening through your life, but God is putting all the pieces together for it to come to fruition exactly when He needs it to and when you need it to. And that was something that I felt really connected with my life. You know, with these health conditions, there are no cures because it's a connective tissue disorder that you're born with, the Ehlers-Danlos. And so I knew that I wasn't ever really going to have a normal life, and I had kind of accepted that, but I still leaned on my faith, and I still hoped, and I still prayed. And there were so many times that I called ministers that my mom was part of in a Bible study in Tennessee, and I called them on the phone and had them pray with me, and it helped me spiritually, but not really physically. I was still the same. And there was one point where in 2017, I was actually about to go walk in New York Fashion Week in about 2 weeks, and I was bedridden. because I was so sick, and my parents were carrying me from the first floor up to my bed, and I physically could not get out of bed. And there was just this point where I said, I don't know how I'm going to do this. In 2 weeks, I'm supposed to get on a plane and go to New York City and model. How is this going to be possible? I don't want to quit. I don't want to say, I'm sorry, no, I can't do that. And my mom said, we just need to pray. And so I got on the phone with that minister, and she prayed over me for about an hour. And she had done that about 3 times before. And this time was different. And I think that I was just ready, and God was ready. And I think I was at that turning point in my life where God was like, okay, it's time. And I remember feeling so tingly and just so weird. And she told me, all right, you need to go and walk out your healing. You need to get up and live your life. And I was like, okay. And immediately when we hung up the phone, I got out of bed and I was like, oh my God, I don't know what this feeling is. I feel normal. I don't know what normal feels like. I think this is it. And I feel great. And I immediately was able to go walk the dog around the block with my dad. I got in the pool and I played volleyball. And I really never looked back. And there was a point where the IV fluids started to make me sick because I didn't really need them anymore. And a doctor would look at me and still say, you know, yes, you're sick. Like, you have these conditions, they don't go away. But I don't experience those symptoms like I did, and I'm able to live the life that I have now because of that. And I think that that Bible quote really speaks to that in my journey, and that, you know, this time for my life might be because I experienced those health conditions. And then this platform is Miss Pennsylvania that God has given me. I really feel like He wants me to share my story, share what He's done for my life, and inspire others in the same way.
I love it. And one of my favorite parts about Queen Esther is that God had put her in that position for such a time as this, and actually saved her entire race.
Right, exactly.
So God has you in a position where you can go to the Pennsylvania, right, House of Representatives, and you found yourself in Washington, D.C. Like, tell us how God is using your journey to influence even the political realm.
Right. Well, even just when I think it was 18 years old, I got an invitation to go to the Pennsylvania House of Representatives and talk about the work that I had been doing with raising awareness of these invisible illnesses. And I got to stand in front of representatives and senators in the Capitol. And when I was speaking, it was really crazy because you could just hear a pin drop. There was silence when people were listening to my story. And I really felt in that moment that I was achieving what I set out to do. And this past year as Miss Pennsylvania USA, I had the opportunity to go to our nation's capital for Rare Disease Day and talk and give my story to people that are suffering from rare and invisible diseases. And just the hope that was on their faces was so tangible, and it really just meant the world. And through my pageant career, I've always been vocal about my health conditions because they are so misunderstood. And I was actually misdiagnosed in middle school. They misdiagnosed me with a condition that I did not have. They put me in intensive physical therapy for 2 weeks. I was an inpatient in a hospital doing intensive physical therapy for about 9 hours a day. And with the health conditions that I have, you're exercise intolerant. So I actually almost died because I was misdiagnosed.
Wow.
And so I'm incredibly passionate about raising awareness so people don't have to experience the same things that I have. And through pageantry, there have been countless times where girls or women or their families have come up to me and said, you know what, I think that's what I have, or I think that's what my relative has. Can you please tell me more? Can you connect me with a doctor? Because they're experiencing the same symptoms and we have no idea what they have. And I feel like this might be the correct answer. So even just personally with small different groups of people through my pageant career, I feel like I've really been able to touch people's lives in that way, and that's really because God put me there.
Raising awareness and really impacting the healthcare industry.
Yes.
Like and possibly even saving lives.
Right.
I mean,
what I hope to do.
Yeah, just by getting the word out. And hopefully even today somebody is watching and they're thinking, I'm struggling.
Right.
And something's not working right. And maybe just this conversation alone will help them.
Right.
Do you believe that women should be entrepreneurs?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. I'm one of them.
Yes.
So I run my own women's fashion company called White Elephant Boutique, and we have a storefront location in Irwin, Pennsylvania, and one in Greensburg, but also online. And that was one of the things that was very interesting about my journey, because I never was very interested in fashion. I mean, you should see me on dress down day in school growing up. It was not a pretty sight. I had no fashion sense, and I really wasn't interested in business as well. I wanted to go into opera. I was a performer. I loved music. But whenever I was really impacted with these health conditions, I had to keep withdrawing from school. I would try to go to school. I went to the University of Pittsburgh. I was there in an apartment, and I lasted almost a full semester before my health took a turn for the worse, and that happened over and over again. And I always had to keep medically withdrawing. So I basically went back to the drawing board and said, all right, with these health conditions, I don't think that I'm going to be able to ever work a regular 9-to-5 job for somebody else. I have to do something for myself. What can I do? And at the time, I was also modeling at a place called Atlanta Apparel Mart, which is in Atlanta, and it's where all of these designers and brands go a few different times a year to debut their new lines. And so I was modeling for a few different prom and pageant designers, and I saw on the bottom few floors all of these boutique apparel vendors and all of these women walking around, some with infants, shopping for their boutiques and buying. And I had never seen anything like it before, and I was so inspired. And so on my breaks, I'd throw my robe on and my slippers, and I'd run down to the floors and see what was trending for the new seasons. And I really became involved in fashion through pageantry and modeling. And so in 2017, I came back from a modeling trip, and I sat my family down and I said, all right, I have an idea. I think I want to start an online women's apparel boutique. Doing it online. If I'm sick, I'll be able to do it from my bed. I can do it out of the house. I think this might be the answer. And I always was needing new clothing as an international title holder. I had appearances all the time. Girls would offer to buy the clothes off my back because they couldn't find that nice, in-between, fashionable, unique piece. And now I knew where to get it, at Apparel Mart. And so I sat my family down, pitched my idea. They were kind of hesitant, but the next time I went to the Apparel Mart, my dad called and he said, all right, I signed up for the LLC. You might as well start buying while you're down there. So then my mom and I started buying for the boutique. We launched online in October of 2016 and really never looked back. And now we have 2 storefronts, over 20 employees, and we ship worldwide.
And I personally own some merch from the White Elephant.
Do you?
I do.
Oh, thank you.
It's adorable. It's cute. It's fun.
Thank you.
No, but what you said was huge. Okay, I keep going back to, what did you say? Medical.
Invisible illnesses.
Yeah, and like because of my medical condition, it keeps setting me back. From college, from this. But what you did was you just reinvented.
Right. And that's what you have to do.
You redesign your life.
Right.
That you're not victim to what's happening to you or symptoms, but you can actually think out of the box. What works for me?
Exactly.
How can I design my life for me? What would you say to somebody that just feels stuck right now? And they're just they just have almost become victim to all of the circumstances. What would you say to them?
I would say that I was there. I know exactly how that feels, but you don't have to give up on your dreams. You may have to reinvent them. You may have to think of different ways you can achieve them or come up with some new goals and dreams, but you don't have to give up. You just have to get creative. And one of the things that I did as Miss Pennsylvania USA is I started a hashtag called See the Unseen. So hashtag See the Unseen on social media as a way for people to share their struggles with illness or challenges or invisible illnesses, because really, when I grew up, I felt so alone. I was the only person I knew at 16 years old dealing with something like this. I didn't see people in the media or celebrities that were speaking out on anything like this. I didn't have anybody to relate to or be inspired by. And I just know how isolating and how lonely that feels. And so I wanted to make sure I created a way for people to connect and people to share their stories as a way for a community of support and hearing one another. So I've encouraged people to use that hashtag, say, See the Unseen, share their story, and be inspired by others and really connect, because the truth is you are not alone.
Yeah. Okay, we are going to watch you in November, and we are going to be personally cheering you on, like a whole army cheering you on. You're representing us. You're representing the heart of God. And how can we pray for you?
Oh my gosh. Thank you, first of all. And I would just say, please pray to give me mental clarity when I'm on stage and in my private interviews. They're asking a lot of challenging questions of these title holders, especially in a year like 2020.
Yes.
So I would ask that you pray for mental clarity,
Yeah.
God's peace, and that I don't trip in my heels on stage.
Yes, the most important one. And that the new crown fits, right?
That too.
But thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thank you.
I believe that your story is going to help people. It's going to inspire them and maybe even save a life.
Thank you. I hope
I
so.
do believe that you were born for such a time as this, and this is the
Thank you.
perfect time for you.
Thank you so much. That means the world. I really appreciate it.
And for those of you watching, maybe you're going through #see the unseen. I want you to know that you might not feel seen, you might not feel heard, you might have a mess that's going on in your life, but I want you to know that God sees you, that God is with you, that He cares for you. He wants to take the mess and the chaos in your life, and He wants to bring a message, and He wants to bring order, and He wants to bring that flourishing through you, that you're not a victim, you're a victor. You're the head and not the tail. And you are adorned and loved by God. He has an incredible plan for your life, and we want you to flourish. Have the best day and the best week ever.